Thank you, Whittaker. Some of us regard this as a religious community, and others say, well, it's really a spiritual community. That's a better way to describe it. And still others say it's an ethical community. And I think for most of us, it's a chance for us to participate in activities and get together every Sunday with people, with friends who we love. Every Sunday, we take a minute to either review all the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism or a couple. And for this morning's service, I'd like to focus on number 2 and number 7. And those are justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And the second is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And this used to be, the one word for this used to be environmentalism, but the last time that UU revised these, and they've, unlike the 10 Commandments, well, I guess the 10 Commandments do get revised from time to time. But the latest revision is an affirmation of the interconnectedness of everything. And those are the 2 that are really connected to what our talk is about, and it really connects with what UU is all about. And this is a page from the online version of the magazine of UUA. It's called UU World. And I mentioned our Facebook group, which is it's a private group that anybody can join. And I put a link to this page, but there's all kinds of activities, not just from the UU National, but from UUs all over the country. Some of them have gardens, and I think probably, I know at least one. I know the one in Greenville, South Carolina has something very similar to Dewpoint. So this is a very UU compatible idea that we're going to hear about today. Now it's time for our offering, which our offerings come in the form of time spent at the fellowship, work, donations of things, and also donations of money. And we put this in the deepening section of our service in part because I think this offering of donations in whatever form they come in is part of our spiritual or ethical practice. And while the plates are passing, Whittaker will play for us something from Robert Schumann. Is that correct, Whittaker? And it's papillon, or papillon plural, butterflies. So, Whittaker, thank you very much. Bravo, bravo. To get us in the mood for our speakers, Amanda Rees, member of our fellowship, soon leaving for Scotland, will give us a reading by, I'm going to let you pronounce his name.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, everyone. So the reading this morning comes from the work of Masanobu Fukuoka. So Fukuoka was born in 1913, died in 2008, was a proponent of natural farming methods for the best part of the 20th century, or the last half of the 20th century. And in 1975, he wrote a book called The One Straw Revolution, which really captured a lot of his evolving sort of philosophy about farming, and from which this reading is taken. His father was a farmer, but he didn't go into farming directly. He went into the science of farming and became a lab guy for a number of years. But after a life-threatening illness, he had a change of heart and mind, and rethinking about agriculture. An observant youth, he had seen all the farmers in the village grow rice by transplanting their seedlings into a flooded paddy field, as a lot of us might have seen in films and read about in books. But eventually he realized that there isn't one way of growing rice. Well, that's not the best way of growing rice, but better to watch the natural cycle of wild rice. And in that state, wild rice matures over the summer. In the autumn, the leaves wither, the plant bends over to drop its seeds into the earth. After snow melts in the spring, the seeds germinate and the cycle begins again. In other words, he said, rice kernels fall on unplowed soil, sprout and grow by themselves. So a leader in what is variously called no-till agriculture, natural farming, permaculture, Masanobu Fukuoka called his approach do-nothing farming. So I'm going to read just a little bit from his 1975 book. It's called, the chapter is called Toward a Do-Nothing Farming. For 30 years, I've lived only in my farming and little contact with people outside my own community. During those years, I was heading into a straight line towards a do-nothing agricultural method. The usual way to go about developing a method is to ask, how about trying this, or how about trying that, bringing in a variety of techniques one upon another. This is modern agriculture, and it only results in making the farmer busier. My way was opposite. I was aiming at a pleasant, natural way of farming, which results in making the work easier instead of harder. How about not doing this? How about not doing that? That was my way of thinking. I ultimately reached the conclusion that there was no need to plow, no need to apply fertilizer, no need to make compost, no need to use insecticide. When you get right down to it, there are few agricultural practices that are really necessary. The reason that man's improved techniques seem to be necessary is that the natural balance has been so badly upset beforehand by those same techniques that the land has become dependent upon them.
Thank you, Amanda. So Brad Barnes and Jenn Collins. Brad was a career journalist and a marketing expert, and Jenn was a computer programmer and a manager, but they began pursuing a simple living ethos more than 15 years ago. And I think that's something many of us aspire to and few of us reach. But Jenn also earned a master's degree in environmental science, and she worked at Jenny Jack Farms for 3 years, is that correct? And the two of them launched Dewpoint Farm in 2019. It's in Midtown Columbus, and I'm going to let them tell you about it. Brad and Jenn.
Morning. He covered a lot of our backstory. I'm Brad, this is Jenn, and Dewpoint Farm is in Midtown Columbus. We're about 1/6 of an acre, tucked kind of behind Buckeyes or Hannon Elementary, if y'all know that area, and that little derelict neighborhood that kind of abuts St. Elmo and Maricopa, the historic district there. And we could talk about lots of stuff. We could talk about what we do to the soil, our practices. We do follow a no-till practice, and we do more than nothing, but we do as little as possible. And what we do, but I thought for purposes of today and for you guys, we kind of agreed that the how and why might be more pertinent for you, and the steps that led us to the farm, which were many, and started really small. And even though the farm is in Midtown, the story really starts in Bibb City, where it's the only place. I moved here in '99 to work for the Ledger-Enquirer, covering arts and entertainment, and Bibb City is the only part of the town I've ever lived in. I just fell in love with it when I saw it. I loved the rolling hills. It reminded me of my granddad's property in the Shenandoah Valley. And then we started dating while we were living there. Jenn bought a house there. We bought a house together after we got married there, renovated it, and just really fell in love with the neighborhood, even though it was worn pretty hard, had a lot of working poor, had a lot of non-working poor in it at the time. And one of the pieces of property we would see as we would walk the neighborhood was this little clay lot at the end of Anthony Street, which only runs one block and it abuts 2nd Avenue. And this little clay lot had a burn barrel on it. It had a camper, someone living in a camper on it at one point, had a couple of abandoned, rusted out cars on it. And it was right on 2nd Avenue. It was just what the city would call an eyesore, without question. And we're like, what can we do with this thing? And we had started attending meetings of a group called the Columbus Food Oasis, which was an outshoot of Georgia Organics, which is a nonprofit that promotes farming in the state. And the specific Food Oasis group is targeting what they call food deserts, or areas of poverty, of food injustice. And they had a grant cycle coming up where they were looking for little micro grants to award to little pocket projects. And we thought, well, let's see what we can do with this little lot. Maybe we can get the land donated and plant a bunch of fruit trees here. We thought, free fruit to all the people that are wandering by. Had a lot of transient folks getting to and from the Riverwalk. So we pitched it and got the money and got the land donated and built a community orchard. The photo on the left is the before photo after we had kind of cleared the lot, the burning barrel and the camper and the cars and such, but still some derelict houses on either side. And then the photo on the right is the very first spring there after we had a work day and had a bunch of volunteers and trees donated from Trees Columbus. And that's what it looked like just after one spring. It's still going strong. It looks great. We've got pear trees, persimmons, fig, what else?
Blackberries.
Yeah, blackberries, blueberries, and the pear trees are thriving. They're sand pears, which is unfortunate. We didn't have a choice of the type of pear, but they're not the tastiest, but they're great to cook with. They're kind of gritty. Persimmons, and those trees are all picked clean with the exception of the persimmon, which people aren't really sure what to do with. We usually end up harvesting about 30 or 40 fruits off it and just give it out around the neighborhood. But the pear trees are particularly thriving. They're like 12 feet tall at this point and going strong. So we had a huge success with that. We actually got a second grant from the Chattahoochee Foundation, Columbus Foundation, a couple years later, and were able to build that beautiful mural. Build a fence to kind of screen off the derelict properties on the side, make the space a little more inviting. And also you can see that, y'all may have seen this, the fence right off 2nd Avenue as you're near Mercy Med going north toward J.R. Allen. You'll see it on the left. And we just thought it made the space more inviting, would maybe let people know this is a public space, maybe just draw them in, curious about what the space is. So that was the second project there. We were thrilled with how that came out, but it really kind of whetted our appetite to do more. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, so we loved everything about the orchard, but we were realistic. We knew we didn't magically solve hunger by planting a few fruit trees. It was going to take years before they really produced tons of food. And also, it's just not enough calories, to get people through the day. If you look at the numbers in Columbus, 1 in 5 people don't know where their next meal is coming from, and that is much, much worse in Bibb City and North Highland across 2nd Avenue in the area where we live. And so, a lot of those people don't have cars, they can't get to the grocery store or the farmer's market, and so those folks, their hot meals, for the most part, are coming from the gas station. Fried chicken at the Marathon station is a main food stay for a lot of the folks in the neighborhood, which is not great. And we decided, we know we have to bring the food to them, but how do we do it? We need to do some kind of pop-up market, but where could we do it where it would have the most impact? And, and who's going to let us just show up and have a market in their parking lot? We drove around Columbus for months looking at places like the bus terminal, the transfer station for Metra, thinking that might be good. But in the midst of all that, while we were looking for this space, we went to a food Oasis meeting at Mercy Med, the health clinic on 2nd Avenue. And Food Oasis would meet at different places every couple of months just so we could meet new people and see different projects that were going on. And when we got to Mercy Med, which is 2 blocks from our house, we couldn't believe what was going on, because in their backyard they had created this beautiful community garden, because they're seeing 30,000 patients a year, and so many of them have diabetes and heart disease and hypertension, things that can be controlled with good diet. And they realized that food was nutrition, and so they were going to start incorporating gardening and vegetables into their wellness plan. So we see everything that's going on there, and this beautiful garden, and this huge, portico and parking lot. And Brad and I look at each other and we just found our place. And so the next day, we called the extension agent who had been at that meeting and said, hey, we want to start a farmer's market. We're willing to do all the legwork. I'll manage it. And she said, well, that's funny, because I already had another urban farm call and say that we want to provide food for these people. And we had, another group say that they want to contribute. And so we all got together in a room and came up with a pitch for the next grant meeting at Food Oasis that year to start this farmer's market. And we weren't sure what to expect, so we just did a couple of pop-up markets at first at the end of 2017, because we did get the grant, thankfully. And we couldn't believe the turnout. Everybody who showed up, all the farmers were selling out, in just a couple of hours. This woman, this was the first market we did, and when she showed up with her little red wagon, she came and found me and thanked me, because she had been taking 2 buses each way to get her food every week. She's like, thank you for letting me be able to walk from my home to get my food. So that's been going strong for, I guess, 3, we're starting our 4th season. And the thing that we kept seeing, though, was that we needed more food. We needed more growers. And people, at the clinic at Mercy Med would say, can't you just call more farmers? I'm like, I wish there were more farmers for me to call. There's just everybody who's here, who's in the neighborhood is coming. It's so now what do we do? Brad?
So the funny thing is, even farmers, when Jenn would be working at Chris and Jenny Jackson, if they're fantastic people and good friends, would say what this community needs is more people growing food, more people providing food to sell. We've got plenty of people that are willing to buy the food. So we'd been growing stuff in the backyard and had been toying with making a move into farming, and had been looking for an affordable piece of property to do that, meeting with folks like the Land Bank Authority with the city that has properties, vacant properties that they're willing to sell for such purposes, and the Community Foundation again. In fact, we have Amanda, Rees, and Dave to thank for having a dinner party that had a Land Bank Authority liaison with the city and the Community Foundation head both at that dinner party, where we were able to talk about sort of our vision. And sure enough, the woman at the Land Bank called us in the middle of 2019 and said she had a piece of property that they had a buyer for, but the buyer backed out, and it was a grant-funded thing, so they were able to sell to us for a song. She said, see if it meets your needs for the farm. And we're like, boy, let's jump in the car and look at it. And we drove to the site, and we're greeted with that. That's, welcome to Dewpoint Farm, y'all. It's a small lot. It's about 1/10 of an acre. It's about 60 feet wide and 150 feet deep. That's our entire farm right now. I'm standing about halfway back at an edge. I'm standing in a field of kudzu, taking this picture, shooting toward the back of the lot, and that's all privet with the exception of the larger trees. Actually, the one on the left is privet, and it's just really, really large. But the one on the right was a China berry. And we're like, gosh, I just don't know if we can use this lot or not. And then I started looking at the kudzu, and I'm like, this kudzu's all encroaching from the other side. It hasn't really got a foothold on this lot yet. We can probably clear it. So I'm like, let's just, we talked about it, and we decided we would take the property and use at least the front half of it where the kudzu was, where we thought we could clear it. So while Jenn was still working at Jenny Jack Farm, I left my job and started doing this. I spent that summer clearing the lot. This is, you can see there's a little bit of a before photo. The photo on the left I call the lawnmower suicide. You can barely see it. There's a little black lawnmower back there that quit as I was about halfway through mowing that kudzu. We did get it done. And then as we cleared more of the privet on the back, you can see the right photo, we realized there's good space that's getting pretty good sun, especially if we take out that big tree in the middle and the privet tree on the side. So we had a tree service come in and we cleared the lot, and son of gun if we couldn't use the whole lot. So that following spring, this is what it looked like. We trucked in. We were worried. We were trying our best to use organic practices, not using pesticides and herbicides, with a few exceptions for some of the big privet that we had to use a cut stump treatment for. We can talk all about that you want. But we were worried about, because we were manually harvesting by hand that privet, we were worried about it coming back up. Its root structure is pretty intense and it weaves. So what we did is we brought in 61 cubic yards of compost and capped it, putting a big thick layer of compost that hopefully would smother out that privet. It's popped up a little bit. Mostly it's done the job, but we were incredibly happy with what we're able to do with that soil there. And we actually farmed, that's the back half. We farmed another set of beds on the front half the first 2 years. We did all that work to clear the land, and come summer, this is what it still looks like. So, that's all tomatoes. That's Jenn and the tomato tunnel there pulling a giant heirloom tomato. But we have transitioned the front field. We weren't really happy with, number one, the workload that managing both fields was putting on us, and the yields from the front field where we didn't bring that organic compost in wasn't as great. So we were spending a lot of extra energy and only boosting our yields by like 25%. So it wasn't really worth it. So we've transitioned that front field where that old house used to be on this lot to fruit trees that we've got in the ground this year, and should get fruit in the fall, and hopefully can have a low maintenance source for more produce for our low income buyers, or for any buyer. Frankly, we sell to anybody, but our mission is we feel like to target those folks that don't have access to fresh food. And we are in the process of acquiring the adjacent lots. So that's on the left photo to the right. That's Jenn bent over the dying lawnmower, and that's our farm. That's our farm to the right, and that's the kudzu encroaching that we had already pushed back to the fence on the left, and an old house that had a tree falling through it that's all overgrown with vines, like the Trip to Bountiful, if y'all remember that. So we're in the process. So we're under contract to purchase that property from the city as well. They've already demolished the house, and they've torn, that's the photo on the right, is the house gone, the land scraped, and me building a temporary fence, at least until we close on the property, that just keeps people out from accessing our farm in the meantime. I think we're still toying with what to do with the front half of that field. The plan is right now to put more fruit there, just so that we get more produce without a lot more work. The back half of it has a shed that we're going to be able to use to pull equipment that we've now got piled on side fence and back fence, and get that tucked away, build a more permanent wash station for our vegetables, and basically beautify the lot. It's in a little bit of a derelict neighborhood, as you can see from the house next to it. So we're trying to do our part to beautify that and to tuck all our stuff away neatly. And that's the plan for the expansion. Back to you.
Yeah. So I'd say the best part of all of this has been like being able to grow the food and take it back to the market that we helped found with our friends, and build this incredible community with, the people who come week after week to get the produce. And, we've become friends with them. We know exactly what they want when we see them. There are folks, when we see Tomato Man, which is what we call him, because that is all he buys every week, week after week. We put aside the 3 pounds of tomatoes for him and his wife. We know the people who love the habanero peppers, so we always hold a few back until they show up. And the other thing is, we bought this in fall of 2019, and we started spreading that compost and getting ready to farm in March of 2020. Guess what happened March of 2020? We thought, we've lost our minds. We are starting a new business at the beginning of a pandemic. And we didn't even know, like, can we have farmers markets? Can we be open to the public? You know, what are we?
Is it safe?
Is it safe to like handle and, you know, sell our produce? We didn't know anything at the beginning. But what quickly became clear, we just pressed on. Like, we don't know what else to do. We're just going to keep, you know, planting and building and doing what we know how to do. And the neighbors started showing up and saying, can I get some tomatoes from you? Because I'm 72 and I have a heart condition and I'm scared to go to the grocery store. Yes. You know, and the same, you know, when it became clear, Mercy Med said, yes, we are absolutely opening up this market in the parking lot because everybody needs access to food more than ever. And it ended up being the best, I mean, I hate to say that, we ended up making the best of a terrible situation. And so the other good thing is, like, we didn't want to just come into this neighborhood and helicopter the food out. You know, we sell at the Mercy Med market, but we wanted it to be available to the people who needed it in the neighborhood on a regular basis. And we tried doing a pop-up market every week and just slashing the prices, and people would come and hang out and talk to us and offer their support, but we figured out, like, they don't even have the cash to buy, you know, our half-price vegetables. So what do? So we went back to Georgia Organics, and they gave us a grant that just let us give away our food.
They
in
essentially
the
bought our
neighborhood.
produce and said, give
Yeah.
it to these people.
They said, here, we want you to be paid for the work that you're doing, but there's another neighbor in the area who organizes a food bank drop for 200 people in our neighborhood every month. And so the second picture is like that first harvest, we were able to go and get all the greens that were ready that week. And so, the food bank boxes are great, but it's a lot of, dried or canned, frozen produce. So we were able to take something fresh. That's our farm. Like, if you see that house in the back of the drop, like, our farm is right there. So we were able to cut the vegetables and take them and put them in the boxes and talk to the neighbors. And so it was the first day that we really felt like, this is our community, and it was fantastic.
So I guess everyone wants to know when is our produce and where is our produce available. Well, I can tell you when. It's going to be available in a few weeks. We got stuff in the ground now, and it'll be available early to mid-April. We plan to sell at the Mercy. We had planned to sell at the Mercy Med Market that Jenn started all those years ago, but there are new plans. So the food mill, which is a little restaurant right there next to Mercy Med that operates under a nonprofit umbrella. They do a lot of meal prescriptions for people that have diabetes or weight issues or whatever. So Mercy Med can write a prescription for those folks. They can walk over and get some free meals that are medically tailored for their needs. So that's one of their charity operations. They also prep and give away meals to school kids in need. They do a lot of cool things, but they've got big plans for things like a mobile pantry, which will drive a pantry into the neighborhoods like where our farm is, like North Highlands, and offer those people fresh produce straight from a refrigerated truck. I think they plan to buy some of our produce for that. But the biggest thing is they're opening a 6-day-a-week farmers market indoors right next to the food mill. And that's opening mid-April, supposedly. They're still hammering away, so the timeline might flex a little bit. But they've committed to buying produce from us, produce from Mercy Med Farm, and produce from several other farmers, including some dairy and some meat that are all locally sourced and grown following organic practices that are naturally grown. So we're super excited about that. So I would say look for that at the food mill. And if that changes, you can follow us on Facebook if you're curious. At Dewpoint Farm is our handle there, or the website is www.dewpoint.farm, where we'll post updates, and we've got a blog you can subscribe to make sure that you're up to date on where we're going to be having stuff.